Yeah.
And I don't care if we break even on the event. So
Yeah.
if you want to see bands get paid, make sure to buy your ticket now at
Right.
hoysfest.com.
Yes.
But for real, like that's where the money is going, and the rest of it we don't care about. As long as we can, carve out that portion. So even a 50-50 deal would be amazing for me if we could sell, half of our tickets. Selling out last year was really nice though, because yes, like you said, we knew we were going to be able to budget for everything that we needed, alcohol purchase, things like that.
Right.
It's hard work putting it on, definitely, but it's worth it,
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with a man that lives his life like pancakes are it and nothing else matters.
That's right. Nothing else matters. What's up, Jay? It's your boy Mod.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, I got a great pancake recipe,
Dude, I'm really stretching for some of these now, just trying to come up with some shit. Like,
He keeps them a secret from you.
Yeah, I'm every day it's a surprise. I'm like, who am I today? Tell me, Jason.
I just try to come up with a new song name every single time. So, but today we are turning the spotlight on a true powerhouse of the heavy music scene. I would say indie music scene as well. Someone whose passion and dedication have left an indelible mark on our community. She's the founder of Hotter in Your Sleeve Fest, a singer and guitar player for the heavy-hitting Tonguecutter, and a multi-instrumental artist who's been championing the music scene for over 2 decades, and she is an outstanding photographer as well. Her journey has inspired countless peers and musicians, including myself. She's been a huge part of my own musical story, and not only is she an unstoppable force on stage, but she's also part of a dynamic duo married to a badass guitar player as well, proving that rock truly runs in her veins. Welcome, Chantal Roeske, to the show.
Thank you so much. How you like them pancakes?
Way bigger than
wow,
mine.
thank you so much.
Yeah. So 2 decades, that must make you 22? You've been at
Ooh, yeah.
just
Well,
started
let's
young.
just say that we were doing a little bit of the bag cream under the eyes this morning before coming on.
They got you started early.
Yeah, that's bonkers. And you don't feel any different.
Right.
Like we talked about this last time I
Same.
was on, but all the awesome archival footage that you took, watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that Jay did this. And then I'm like, wow, I don't feel any different. I cannot believe this was 23 years ago.
Yeah.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, I remember so many hall shows from back in the day, and I don't feel any older, but then you see a picture of yourself from 20 years ago, and you're like, God, I want that skin back.
Yeah, even
always
10
the
years
skin.
ago.
Yeah.
You're like, I looked like a baby in my 30s compared to now,
But you look better, though, I will say. I think all of our friends, I can't remember if we were talking about this when, if you got back together and we went to the reunion show at the Scheme, but looking around, I was like, everybody looks so good. They look, finely aged, like they're, they have all of their final processing done. You know what I mean?
It buffered all the way through.
Everybody's got their character,
Yeah.
they've got
I
maybe
think-
a little gray, or they've got their beauty is at the height.
Once we all started getting to our late 40s or late 30s and 40s, we started to figure out how to groom ourselves a little better and put on clothes that fit. I know for me, oh my God, I'd swim in cargo pants. I'd wear large T-shirts. And somebody was asking me, well, why do you think you did that? I said, 'cause I'm a small person, so I like to appear bigger,
Yeah.
but I just appeared smaller.
Like
Unwittingly.
you shrunk in your clothes.
Yeah.
That happens when you don't wear fitting clothes. I hid under hoodies and
Yeah.
I think I was kind of trying to hyper masculinate, if that's a word. That's
Sure.
not, but I was trying to do that to my image so that I could be respected as a guitarist. And
Sure.
that was kind of like a coping mechanism
Yep.
at the time, because
that
people would
makes
be like,
sense.
"Why don't you play in a dress? Why don't you do that?" And also, I don't feel comfortable, sometimes moving and throwing down and that kind
Can't
of
do
stuff.
the leg kicks in the dress.
It's difficult. I've done a little bit of it, and I'm like, never again.
Right.
But yeah, when we did our promo pics for Tonguecutter this last summer, it was funny because I was I'm going to bring out the low cut shirt. Shit, I'm not trying to get into heaven. I usually play in T-shirts and jeans and throw down. And I was like, let me just,
Yeah.
Girl it up a
show
little
off
bit.
the assets a little. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's funny. That must have just been a thing too, because I was the same way. I would always wear like super baggy pants. I don't even know why, because I was into metal. Usually, if you're a metal guy, I guess the Jinko jeans and the new metal shit, like kind of, because I was kind of into hip hop, so I was like the big baggy jeans, and then it transferred into metal, but I still just always wore the big baggy jeans, and then it turned into new metal, and I was like, oh, I'm still in style because we got these big ass baggy jeans. And
There you go.
There's like normal baggy jeans back then, but then you had like the ICP kind of like huge,
like the Jinko ones.
just an enormous, and I'm like, well, I look sane over here in my clothing.
You mean you didn't look insane?
Exactly.
Okay.
Nicely
All right.
done.
Yep, exactly.
Well, there's nothing wrong with jugging it up a little bit.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I think Jason and I listened to all kinds of that stuff back in the day. We've had guests on that were like, I'm going to bust myself out. And it's like, no, you're in a safe space. We have listened to many a great Malenko in our day.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, my God. Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
I'm not gonna
guilty
lie.
as charged.
Last year, I went back and I listened to some ICP, and a lot of it was a lot worse than I thought, but Great Malenko still holds up.
Yep.
It's still a great album.
I absolutely love that this is coming up because there is a little bridge. There's a seg later in the conversation that has to do with ICP. So this is hilarious.
Good.
Sweet.
Yeah, I love that.
Working in.
I love how the values of like Juggalo versus like progressive kind of come together too. You think they're going to be like super problematic, and then you're like, all right, these Juggalo folk have got it right.
They're all right.
For me, it's one of
Ain't
those
too
things
bad.
where I've seen what ICP has done, what they built, how they were able to DIY all of it.
Yeah.
So it's like the respect is there. They hustled. They went out. They flyered every high school they could with their flyers to get people to their shows and handed out tapes, and they really grinded to get their fan base. And now they hold the Gathering of the Juggalos, and they've had everybody from, everybody that's anybody has been there, like to perform on that stage. And,
Yeah, that's crazy. There's definitely a huge subculture and was very big, even in like rural farming communities. I remember like 1996, and it was like, kids like rolling by, like creeping with the windows rolled down, like, who's going chicken hunting? And that was like Scottville,
That's awesome.
very far from Detroit or any place.
And then you guys are familiar with them. They were labeled as a gang.
Oh, yeah.
They were actually labeled as a gang, and then so like if somebody had an ICP shirt on or something, you could get in trouble because you were wearing gang memorabilia
Right.
and shit. Like
that was probably the appeal for a lot of these like
It's probably in the Patriot Act.
country. Well, I was saying like country kids who, like people that were like going really hard and trying to like fly colors and stuff like that, but they were like hanging out in cornfields, and it really appealed to that crowd back then.
Yeah. Everybody just wants to be a part of something, right? At the end of the day, you just kind of want to be part of something, know, and that's where a lot of this weird tribalism stuff comes from too, because it's like my team or whatever, or so. But
and it was pure Michigan. Who doesn't want to connect over like Fago and stuff like that? You know what I mean?
Awesome.
I seen ICP, and it was one of the greatest shows I've seen. Honestly,
I wish I would have.
them and Marilyn Manson still are top of my two, and they are so far from my favorite bands or shit I'd even want to listen to, but they're still two of the best shows I've ever seen. So that goes to show something. Like
I will
Marilyn
die
Manson
on the hill.
was bonkers.
The '97 Marilyn Manson Antichrist Superstar tour that we went and saw them with Helmet and Rasputin. Like I'm like reaching to think of it.
Did you go to Wing Stadium?
Yeah.
I was at that show.
Nice.
So
I watched Jay get leveled by a classmate
Dude, the
of ours.
snowflakes. Remember the
mosh pit.
snow falling from the stage and stuff? That was crazy.
During Rasputin, I think.
I got punched in the head during Helmet, which wasn't too awesome, but the whole thing, and like, remember like all the like, there was like senior citizen ladies walking around with like dogs on their shoulders and stuff. Like the crowd there was.
Well, they had the
bonkers.
picketers too. Remember the people outside? There was a bunch of people outside with the picket signs too, because they were talking about like when we were walking in there, they were saying like ignore those people, like stay away from them or whatever. I remember that specifically because they were like you ribless motherfucker. No.
Dude, you guys remember the tornado that night?
Yeah,
I do.
The weather was crazy, and Ben and I were having extra fun that evening. We'll just say we'll leave it at that. We weren't perhaps in our right sensibilities. And I remember the storm plus all of the like really honestly one of the widest and kind of strangest crowds I've ever seen. Like, especially if you mix together like Helmet, and Marilyn Manson, like those two crowds, and just like there was a lot of very interesting stuff going on that night.
And we were always the metal guys, that
Yeah.
liked Marilyn Manson, so we supported Marilyn Manson. But then it could go even further than that with the
Yeah.
guys with the makeup and they just got real, and the super goth people,
Yeah.
they really get into that
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
They live that shit.
Yeah,
you know?
there was like people on stilts and like
Oh,
it
man.
was,
yeah,
and then
like
you-
a
and-
circus.
and then helmets like look like college dudes,
Yeah,
just like
Yeah.
Just rocking,
Clean cut,
Yeah.
ball cap,
just rocking.
Paige Hamilton in his
That
jeans
whole-
and t-shirt.
it was the whole show was cool though. That's so awesome. I love that you guys were there. I know
Yeah.
Ben's gonna watch this and
Yeah,
be
that
like,
was
"Oh my
a school
gosh."
night. We had to drive back and make it to school the next morning. We all crashed at Floyd's house,
Yeah.
as I recall.
Oopsies! I think I skipped school. I was chilling in Mount
Yep.
Pleasant with all of the. Did you guys know? You guys know Nain Rouge
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was over there in Mount Pleasant. I think. Yeah, riding through the horrible weather and the tornado with Bill Saunders, who was driving with his knees and playing air drums to Snapcase. Okay. And I was like, we're gonna die for sure.
This is it. It's the night of the Maryland show. We're just a news headline now.
Great.
Yeah. I keep on
Satanic
bumping this.
teens come from satanic rock show and die in accident.
Oh yeah, they're going to hell for sure.
Just another statistic, kid.
Well, the last time you were on the show, it was actually episode 28, which was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
I just put up 80 yesterday. So
Wow, you guys have done
Um,
awesome.
So you were on the show, and you were here to talk about what we're here to talk about today. Then just a little side note before I get to that, just so you know, this particular week, the week of 12/15, that's today when we're recording, but 12/17, Addison's interview comes out, the one he was just on when
Oh.
you guys went and did the photo shoot.
So excited to see that.
So he does talk about Tonguecutter in there and
Awesome.
the whole, him getting in the band and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I want to have a dedicated Tonguecutter episode. We've been in the works for over a year with that.
It's been busy.
And there's a reason why. There's a valid reason why. But at least we
Yes.
got a little bit of Tonguecutter info out there with Ad this week.
Yes, that's
And
amazing.
like I said, today we can look at calendars and then we'll figure out a day for you guys to come on and we can
Love
talk
that.
about just the band, the new material. We can listen to songs, however you want to do it. But we can talk about that after the show.
Sweet.
So
I can't wait to hear that episode. But yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
it was a really great episode. We kind of got in deep with more. We talked about a lot of stuff, mental health and all that. Ad didn't go super crazy with his technical.
Not as much,
stuff,
but
no.
he can still.
Oh yeah.
He can still hold the conversation on his own, and when he's on the show, I don't really have a spot. I just sit here and listen and nod, and I'm like, "Way to go,
Tell you
guy!"
what, yeah, if you're in a band with him, he's always trying to talk me into like military grade chords and stuff. He's like, that just won't do. That won't do, Shanny. Like his standards are high.
That's awesome.
That's good. I love that dude, man. He's so awesome. But yeah, so that episode is actually episode 76, but that comes out this week, so you can talk a little bit about Tonguecutter. We'll definitely have a full episode dedicated to
We have to.
Tonguecutter. We'll have all you guys on.
That's awesome.
Talk about the new music and everything. But today we're here to talk about Hard on Your Sleeve Fest 2.0, or whatever you
Yes.
want to call it. I don't know what you're calling it, but that's what I'm calling it.
Yes.
So
To do.
to do. Yeah.
Or second annual, we've been saying.
Fully, I do.
Yeah.
So-
Hopefully, it's better than that.
so
do.
so with that being said, this podcast hopefully will be a tradition with you coming on just alongside of this festival as we keep it going, because that's the point, right? So this is your
Absolutely.
return to talk about Hard on Your Sleeve Fest. So before we get into 2.0 though, let's talk about 1.0. Last year's experience, you did an amazing job.
Yeah.
The turnout was awesome.
Yep.
I felt like when you were on the show and you were telling us what you were going for at the end of the night when we were leaving and packing up, I felt like that was accomplished.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say, or how
That
do you
is
feel
awesome
about
to
that?
hear. And it was so freaking rad to have the documentary that you made. And I mean, reflecting back on it, I definitely feel like we achieved that. I know everybody had really nostalgic vibes, and it felt, super grassroots. Love the whole like playing on the floor, being close to each other at a hall show. Vibes were high. Yeah, it was everything that I hoped it would be. I mean, at the end of that, and also with like volunteers and bands, we went back like a month later and basically said, what can we do better next year? So there were things, and we addressed those things this upcoming year, and it was mostly having to do with like, hey, bigger sound system, we're not going to do tickets for drinks. And there was a few little tweaks, but as far as the spirit of the thing, I felt like it was great.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of the night, I can't remember if it was maybe Brett from Snake Out, I think, or somebody else. I'll have to remember. Hopefully I'm not misquoting him, but somebody came up and they were like, this is the first festival I've ever played that's running ahead of schedule. And like me as someone with ADHD, I was like super proud of that. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Because we, it was like boom, boom, boom. And I felt like everything went off without a hitch. It was cool. It was a highlight of my year.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was like basically sold out, right? You sold all the tickets.
Yep, we sold out. We felt like the max capacity that they told us initially was a little on the lower side. And I think that that's an estimate for them, possibly based on like what they usually have there, which is like wedding receptions and like sitting room and stuff.
Yeah, like with chairs and
Right.
tables and stuff.
Yeah,
out.
because it didn't feel anywhere near any sort of dangerous capacity level to me. I
Yeah.
felt like we were able to accommodate.
Yeah.
So we upped that a little bit this year, and we'll see, how that goes as far as like, how many people are going to come. I think every event is kind of like a different beast. And I also think, just transparently, as far as like sales and stuff, last year was also a little bit of a different vibe because it really was like extremely exciting for everybody that If He Dies, He Dies was
Yeah.
back together.
Yeah.
And I think, gosh, that for us looked like immediately like practically selling out of tickets right off the bat because everybody was, itching to get there.
Right.
And I know that's not always like typical,
Yeah.
of fests. And I definitely think we're going to have a fabulous fest this year. But you kind of like, I feel like it's a living, breathing thing, like every event's going to be a little bit different. So this year is already a little different promotionally, a little different setup. And, we're tweaking a few things here and there, but I know we're going to end up with that same, grassroots, really like intimate vibe that we had last year. So
Nice.
How much did you increase the capacity for this year?
by 50. We
Okay.
thought that was reasonable. Also, I'm assuming that is, like I said, sort of an estimated reasonable thing from the
Yeah.
actual venue themselves, and we would never want to, exceed any
There was room
thing
for 50
safety.
people.
But there
Oh,
was, it
There
was
was room.
absolutely not a danger or
Yeah.
anything. And
You'd have like half of the room between like the crowd and the bar. There was plenty of standing room. So
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. And we didn't seem to be over capacity for restrooms. Parking across the street was
Sure.
perfectly fine.
yeah, it's a deep parking lot.
Yeah, so I think we're going to be good there. And what we're anticipating this year because of that, and we hope will be true, and I think will be the case, is that we'll have a lot more people coming to the door. Last year it was kind of like a sell ahead, and
Mhm.
and then of course it was sold out, and so we didn't have a lot of people at the door. And I think it might look a little different this year, which I know is typical of most venues where you have people coming up the day of.
Yeah.
So we'll be pushing hard right up to the day.
Well, I've noticed too, like a lot of venues and bands have had this talking point of late where it's like, get your tickets now.
Please.
But everybody's kind of waiting until the last minute. But I get it because everybody has stuff to do. So
Yep.
they're kind of just like, I'll get that ticket the last minute. Even like I wanted to go to that Bill Murray show and I drug my feet on it and it's sold out now. So it's like I don't get to go to that because I didn't make that executive decision to do
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
that's the world we live in. We're just so inundated with so many things going on. It's like I'll just wait till the last week. If I can fit it in, I'll do it. And
Yeah.
then but I just see that's kind of a thing. Nobody's
Yeah,
really
100%.
I see it with the intersection a lot with their promotion and whoever is booking the shows or eyeballing the ticket sales. They're like, hey, we can't wait until week of, day of type sales because then we don't know if we can continue to book like this.
Yeah.
Right.
We need to have sales up front. So I know it's like you don't even know your schedule. Nobody's really looking a month ahead. Nobody's
Right.
looking 2 months ahead really to know if they can do this. But it's kind of like, first of all, just ask yourself, do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Well, then get the ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you can't make it, if something comes up, then maybe there's a resale opportunity there, right?
Yeah,
or
sure.
Yeah.
or what have you. But it does put a lot of pressure on promoters and people booking shows to, make sure that they happen
Yeah.
when everything is sales at the last minute. But if they got 2 months out sales and they know, all right, this is awesome, we're
Right.
gonna succeed and we can continue to do this, then you'll have another show the next year, or the intersection, for example, will continue to be able to bring in heavy metal bands. But if all the fans don't buy until week of, then they're going to be a little bit trepid about trying to continue to book those sorts of bands.
Yep, exactly.
That's the talking point that I get.
Yeah, it is hard for planning. luckily, like, and I 100% agree with that, everything that you said. And then I also see the consumer side of it, and this is probably, me as a business owner and serving customers that, commitment is it's just like, when you're selling a product and you ask someone to buy and you don't really know them well and they're like, I'm not going to marry you. Shit, I
Right.
don't even know you. I'm not going to go on a date with
Right,
you.
right. Yeah.
Hopefully this last year will put a little experience and a little bit of like a relationship with the people that we had there last year. But I will say that that was part of the reason why, I set some funds aside and saved because for me, it was like, I'm cool with breaking even on this.
Mm.
I don't need to make money, nor did I last year, because I literally took everything that we made, which transparently was like, I think $875 is what we profited off last year, which could have probably been more had we tweaked a few things with our bar and stuff like that, business stuff that we learned from.
Mhm.
But I literally, stuck that in a pot and I was like, this is going to go towards paying the bands for next year in the hall and things like that. And it doesn't sound like much, but at the same time, for younger musicians that are trying to like set up shows and things like that, it's rare. You guys know that a young musician might say, yeah, I have like $1,500 to front on putting together the show. Nobody has that to put down,
Right. Yeah.
And so that was part of our thing. It was like, we are going to have to plan for exactly the reason that you just said. We know people aren't going to necessarily always buy ahead. And we have to make sure that we can, first and foremost for me, pay artists. And I've had so many people, so many musicians, like just like a huge portion of our talent say, we don't even worry about paying us. Like, we just want to pay it. And I'm like, awesome of you to say that, but hell no.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that is my number one tenet, is that bands get compensated for their
Sure.
art.
Yeah.
And I don't care if we break even on the event. So
Yeah.
if you want to see bands get paid, make sure to buy your ticket now at
Right.
hoysfest.com.
Yes.
But for real, like, that's where the money is going, and the rest of it we don't care about, as long as we can, carve out that portion. So even a 50-50 deal would be amazing for me if we could sell, half of our tickets. Selling out last year was really nice though, because yes, like you said, we knew we were going to be able to budget for everything that we needed, alcohol purchase, things like that.
Right.
It's hard work putting it on, definitely, but it's worth it,
Yeah. So we want to explain maybe some differences between like what you got going on with 2.0 than 1.0. I'm just going to say that, just make it easier.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome.
Or 2025 Fest compared to 2024 Fest.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the things that are the same. We're at the same place. We're at Hagar's Hideaway. It's still all ages. Minors accompanied with an adult, of course, because we do have drinking going on. So make sure you bring your IDs as last year. Like I said, the location is the same. We're keeping the layout similar this year. As far as like if you attended last year and you saw like where the bands were at and stuff like that. We have a sound upgrade this year, so I'm looking forward to that. We're gonna have bigger and better sound. And actually, you guys know American Cheese from Grand Rapids, the band?
I don't know them personally. I know he's worked a lot with them. He always brags them up and has probably talked about them multiple times.
Absolutely. In fact, he was the one that recommended Leo, who is a sound engineer. So,
Okay.
So our sound engineering, I think, is going to be a big portion of the upgrade this year, which
Sweet.
we're really looking forward to. And there'll be a few changes with how we are setting up our alcohol sales. Last year we did tickets, which was okay. This year, the general public will just be, paying for their drinks. And you know how at the very back of the building, we had that little like bar top area that we were serving at. We're kind of flipping it to the little kitchen area this year. And so like there'll be like some minor little structural things inside. But for the most part, I think those are the biggest changes outside of, increasing our capacity a little bit. So we hope to fill the building up a little bit more and be louder.
Okay.
I thought I had read there were some talks about how you're going to handle the food this year. Was there a change in that?
Yeah, so actually, I'm glad you said that because I completely forgot. We are really hoping to partner with a food truck. We have had some chats going on, so I don't have any official announcements there. But that does actually bring up one final point that I'm really excited to talk about, and that is that one of our biggest changes as far as like hospitality this year is that we are partnering with Rake Brewing.
Okay.
So we're going to have a coffee and like hot cocoa bar there.
Sweet.
And also Josh is brewing a special beer for the fest this year. So we're really pumped on that. So we're going to have some great microbrew available and, a regular bar along with that as well. But
How did you feel everyone's behavior went off last year with respect to the drinking?
you know what? I honestly felt like it went really well. We had a very small handful of people that probably went outside of their limit. And
Mm.
I mean very small, like maybe one or two
Yeah.
individuals I can think of.
Sure.
That
Not
we-
saying no names, but we'll
No
drop them
names.
in right now. We'll just put their profile picture right up on
yeah.
these
Check the
individuals.
show liner notes for the Instagram profile screen cap.
Yeah.
We had a few people that, were a little too wild. I genuinely feel that is probably reflective of not only, their personal choices, and you're just always going to have that. But if we're really talking shop and talking business, sometimes if your alcohol is too cheap, you've got that going on too,
Yep.
you know? And we certainly were not trying to like make a huge profit off of anyone. But, the drinks were cheap last year and we were very responsible in how we handle it. So I don't want to, present ourselves like we were not handling the alcohol portion of things well. I actually think our staff did a great job. But yeah, some of those changes this year will hopefully, keep things. But I really do feel like everybody was pretty moderate and that it went pretty well. We
I do
only had a
too.
few people, and we might have that regardless of how we handle it. You know?
People will be people.
People will be people.
I wanted your opinion on it because I felt like everybody was really well behaved.
Mhm.
That said, as you mentioned, there were a couple of people that were a bit extra, and I was concerned for your sound system and or the band's equipment because some of those individuals were getting a little close to the sound gear.
Yes.
And I wondered if you're going to approach that any differently, if there's going to be a way to ensure the protection of the equipment
Yeah.
from any audience. Like I know there might be some moshing,
Yes.
kids getting wild.
Yep.
Alcohol or not, there could be something of that nature. So
Yeah.
was that something that you worked out in the logistics?
So we have additional like bouncing staff coming on this year,
Okay.
and I don't want to, obviously we're not going to put too many barriers between, the audience and the band.
Just a row is 6 foot
You're
tall.
right. There's going to be a huge fence and a staff.
Yeah.
But I
Just
do feel
everybody's the fucking home improvement neighbor trying to watch the band.
Yeah. But I feel like we need to ask our bounce staff
Wilson.
specifically to stand up in front when we've got throwdown stuff going on. So
Yeah.
I think we need some human protection. We
Yeah.
didn't have too much go down last year.
No.
We did have one PA stand casualty.
Uh-huh.
So yes, a piece of equipment was damaged.
Sure. Okay.
And that was probably the worst thing of all to me because, our PA system was volunteered to us.
Yeah.
And we offered to compensate the individual, Mitch actually,
Okay.
who volunteered that for us, and he, didn't want to do that. And so, I just appreciate everybody who did anything for us last year. And, I know how it goes too. Like I've certainly had things damaged at
Mhm.
shows and running a
Yeah.
house venue. It happens. But for the most part, everyone was very well behaved. But
Yeah.
yes, I do feel like we probably will need some people stationed. I know that like I think If He Dies, He Dies was a pretty rowdy headliner last year. And I am sure people are gonna rock out for Bronson Arm. I'm also thinking though that probably like Tunnel of Love or like, Power Violence, tends to get the adrenaline coursing and
Yep,
things
yep.
circling. So we may have some other bands earlier in the night that get things a little rowdy, and I think we'll have to assign some spots because last year really we kind of like said to bouncing staff just kind of go where you're needed, and they kind of walked around, and they did have to do a little bit at the end there with some rowdy people, but we didn't really have like people standing in front or something, which I kind of feel like we'll probably have to station
Right.
some people
Yeah.
in that.
I mean, I feel like I was trying to place myself between people and equipment because I was worried about the equipment. But
Right.
I'm not really the one to. I'm just going over with the equipment. Truth be told, like I'm next to nothing. I am
Yeah.
the last layer. I am paper thin.
And then you have, when Tonguecutter went on, and I was like, "Get close, everybody! I want to smell your breath." And I'm like, "Well, I probably wasn't helping things."
Yeah, right.
There's a fine line between
No.
being intimate and having someone
Yeah.
step on your pedal board.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely do our best to protect that. Honestly, we didn't have a whole lot of like floor monitors last year either.
Right.
And sometimes the more gear you have, I don't know if we can place it a little different. We've got some of those pillars. But I think with, some of the more advanced sound engineering, I think there's going to be a lot more planning going on
Okay.
this year. So
Yeah, because sometimes if there's two fronts, even if there's like two fronts with the two subs and you got two monitors in the front, it's like everybody kind of can only go that
Yep,
far anyway.
you got a wall.
And you're kind of
Exactly.
like, you know, you're not going over that unless you get pushed over that. Then your knee hurts. But other than that, because
Exactly.
you got thrown on that fucking thing,
right.
You know?
Then you got a little shin action going.
So when you talk about difference in sound, like you're gonna have a different PA, I'm kind of wondering about that because I know part of it is just like the DIY thing. Like, hey man, this is what we got. This is PA. Here's our amps. We're cranking. Let's
Right.
go. So what was the decision to get different sound, and what is that gonna look like as far as sound goes?
The actual engineering for what we have, I am not 100% sure what the exact setup is going to be, except for that I know it's going to be bigger and badder.
Okay.
And it also cost us more.
Okay.
Not that we weren't prepared, but that is also switch up in the budget this year because, last year being our first year, it was really awesome to have like PA donated.
Yeah.
And our wonderful friend Nick Sandy ran the sound from the credit union, and all of that's stressful. Like, running, you guys know running sound is so stressful. But nobody was necessarily like a full-time sound engineer. When I say that, I know like Mitch absolutely has been doing like sound stuff for a long time, and he's very much like an audiophile person. But he doesn't like necessarily like run sound
Right.
for a
Yeah.
living. And
Yeah.
we had a minimal setup, which he
Yeah.
was totally transparent about from the beginning, and we greatly appreciated him. But yeah, so I think the fact that it's more of a pro undertaking this year in general. It's funny because I actually think that Leo did mention to me like some of the changes that he was thinking in a text message. I'm like, I probably could look and see, but I know it's just more because honestly, it was a little bit underpowered last year. And then you guys know, for any musicians, that hall structure where you've got that decay of where you've got this sound like kind of like bouncing against the wall and bouncing back. It's
Yeah.
like sometimes it can be bad, sometimes it can be good.
Yeah.
And I think for us last year, maybe it wasn't so great. I mean, it was cool, everything went well, but yeah, that the decay and the way that room was structured needed some different engineering, you know.
Well, that's the biggest concern I have about the room itself is just where the row of pillars are.
Yep.
So you got this kind of weird half a wall thing going along,
Exactly.
like a third or a quarter
Sound
of
escaping in there instead of bouncing.
Yeah,
out.
exactly. And so, having a sound engineer who it's their trade or profession, they might be able to address that a little bit better. However, they shape and point the speakers and
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
And that's all it too. Yeah. And you're totally right about those little corners because it wasn't exactly like because sometimes when the sound bounces back, it's
Yeah.
good. But yeah, there was areas for it to like
Yeah.
creep into and like get stuck.
I mean, it's definitely like a hall for a wedding reception
Right.
or even a ceremony, if you will, or just
Yeah.
gatherings and business stuff. But
Right.
when you're trying to put on loud music in there, I think, and it went off fine. Everybody could hear the music and, like nobody had any problems with it. Nobody was complaining, oh, the sound's terrible. Nobody said that. But yeah, you want to get more out of it if you can. And
Yeah.
it looks like it's a bit of a challenge as I'm looking at the pillars. I'm like, this
Yeah.
probably got a big effect on the sound right now. But
It totally did. I was looking like a, like a flight attendant. I'm like, because I'm picturing what is happening to,
Right.
and you're totally right.
And
I
then
think
that
it is
back
challenging.
wall is further back on the one section, and then it kind of cuts up front
Yep.
because they have that room where it's kind of where you have all the chairs and tables and
Yep.
stuff. So there's that too. So it's not a perfect rectangle. That is
Right.
yeah.
just.
But yeah, the upgrade in the sound engineering department will probably address that,
And I think
smooth it out for you.
a lot of times, especially with shows like that, the main takeaway is, can we get the vocals clear and a little bit louder? Because you don't probably really have to mic the amps, but like my drummer, for instance, he uses triggers, so it'd be nice to have something just to be able to run that through, or a snare
Yes.
mic, or it don't have to be elaborate, but just have that little bit of something extra. A kick drum mic sends that sound into the next level. You don't even have to mic the whole drum kit, but just like
Yep.
a
You want
mic
to feel
on the
that
kick,
wanna feel that
exactly,
kick drum.
can make a big difference. So
Yep.
it's not
We-
like you have to go above and beyond and put no crazy
Right.
sound system in there, and crank
Last
it.
year,
But
I think we mic'd, kick and had vocals, but genuinely not enough. I definitely think this year we're going to have cabs mic'd and we'll just have more sound in general. You're right that I feel like, everybody needed more vocals last year, all of that. And yeah, if you were standing right up front in the middle, it sounded really good.
Oh, it sounded great.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like listening back, like, yeah, or if you're on the sides or for the musicians themselves, I think that was the struggle point.
Yeah.
Because none of the attendees said anything about sound.
Right.
Yeah.
It was all the musicians that were like, hey,
Super
we
critical.
couldn't hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is valid, like been
Yeah.
there. We knew that was probably going to happen, with what we were dealing with. So yeah, we'll definitely look forward to having much better sound this year, which is going to be awesome.
I think that's always worth the investment because at the end of the day,
Yes.
it's about the music anyway. So you
Exactly.
want the music to sound good. So,
Yep.
whatever you have to do, if it's a little more investment, if it's a little more time, if it's finagling things a different way, I think that's definitely the way to go.
Yep.
So,
Yep, that was really the only solid piece of feedback that we got from people in our groups and from musicians. Like I said, no feedback, no negative feedback whatsoever from attendees. It was all, high fives and hugs and stuff. But yeah, that was the resounding feedback that we were all kind of thinking ourselves anyways. And that was the first thing that we did this year was secure that. So
nice. So, since your band isn't playing this year, how is your role changing?
I'm so excited to just, be able to run things and enjoy and take pictures and, do all the promo stuff that I did last year beyond that. It's funny because I've had a couple people say, well, you guys aren't going to be on the bill this year. Like it's your band or it's your fest. You might as well put your own band on. And I was like, that is not the spirit of this.
Yeah.
No.
I get that.
I didn't want it to feel like this incestuous thing where, I'm just like glorifying.
It's the Tonguecutter Fest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, because we play every year because it's my fest.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I hope nobody's listening that's doing that, but that's lame. And, it's also a lot of stress.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah. Somebody out there is like, but everybody
No,
I know.
I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah.
There's a lot of Lakeshore and like West Michigan based talent. And, we need to highlight it. And yeah, frankly, I'm looking forward to not having to play and manage that as well. So I feel like it's going to be a lot more chill for me this year. And, Ben's going to be doing the same thing and helping with operations and making sure all of the stage tech stuff gets done. And I just feel like we're going to be able to enjoy ourselves so much more. He played last year as well, obviously, them Teeth did.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that and just being able to, really focus on, the coordination and the orchestrating.
Yeah. Great pictures last year, by the way.
Thank
too.
you
Those
so
were
much.
amazing. I used those a lot when in any of the promo stuff, especially if a band was on. I referenced your pictures for the job because they were great pictures.
Yep.
Oh, that's
you got some good
awesome
ones
to
of
hear.
me and Nick talking to people. I thought they were awesome. It was like the candid picture. I didn't even know you took it, but when you sent them over, I was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. That's the way to do it.
Awesome.
So, great job
I'm so
with that.
glad to hear that. That's
Yeah.
the power of the 7200 lens. Being an event photographer for a long time, it's like you want to creep up on people and get close, but you don't want to be in their face and let them know you're
Right.
there, Yeah, thank you so much. That's one of my favorite parts is photographing, and I think that's another thing I'll have more time for, not having to,
that's
manage playing and
Not
stuff.
just a hobby of yours, but like almost a career, if you will, or a side hustle for you, correct? The photography business?
Full time, actually.
Full-time?
So
Okay.
I'm full time. That's all I do. It's how I pay my bills, and I do some other business and marketing related things as well. My master's is in that, but
Okay.
yeah, I have a full time portrait and wedding
All
company.
right. I mean, I knew you did it. I was unaware that it was your full-time gig, so my
Yeah.
bad on that.
No, you're all good. I have a commercial photography company as well,
Okay.
but I do discounted photos for musicians as a passion. So
Heard that, everybody? Discounted photos for
Yes.
musicians. You heard it here.
I really do. I really enjoy it. If I can fit it into my schedule, you got it. Inbox me. There are other causes that I do reduce cost photos for as well. Like I work a lot with marginalized entrepreneurs. I work a lot with marginalized school systems that don't have money and things like that. So I have other volunteering and discounting passions, if you will. But musicianship is one of those for sure. And I know that musicians and artists don't have money to, do the promoting. So
Right. And real quick before we get back to the festival, just on your photography business, did I hear you say, did I miss it? Do you have a studio where you can shoot indoors during
yes,
these cold seasons?
I
Okay,
do.
you do.
I have a studio in Grand Haven. It's not super big, but it is definitely a great place for underlit tough guy folks. And you don't want to be, you don't need to be with an abandoned warehouse behind you. Like it can just be all about you with black and light.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that Black Dahlia murder photo
Right
behind
there.
us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody needs, honestly, a good, solid, like serious portrait. Like it's funny because I was, we photographed with Vicky Stark recently, who I love. Her work is just fun and vibrant. And I will always shout her name out. And I've sent a lot of referrals her way because it's really, outside the box, fun photography that's different kind of than what I do. And I think that every band kind of needs a few shots in their pocket. They need like the fun out of the box stuff. They need the good live stuff, which I also do. And then they need the solid editorial headshot that's going to be something that you would, send to, a magazine that you would want to have,
Yeah.
Right.
published.
Your EPK type stuff. and-
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
And you want a little sprinkling of that all in your press kit,
Yeah.
And listen, bands, get a hold of Chantal, because when I'm going through the stuff you send us in, or I'm going through your band photos to make the art for the episode you might be on, and I can't find but 3 photos, and I got to somehow finagle this crappy kind of pixelated photo out of
Seriously.
off Facebook just to try to do it. It's like, I think if that's not your shtick, if you're like, we don't want no photos, we're sleeping under the table like sleep token, we don't want nobody to know who we are or
Right.
whatever. I get that, but most of the time you're in a band because you want to be like, hey, look at me, I'm in a band. So get your pictures taken with Chantal. So
Yeah.
I have some shit I can use when you come on the podcast.
Yes,
'Cause
please.
There's a lot of bands you just click on. They're going to be a band for the last 7 years, and you're like, you don't even have no photos that have been at a show since 2017. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on here. Like,
I seriously hate to say this because I know a lot of people don't like doing it. And, your band is likely comprised of people that, are half and half on it. But in my opinion, every time you do something like, or annually, or whenever you have a release, campaign wise, you need new photos.
Yeah.
Even if you take them with your cell phone, legit.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you need the new photos, and they don't have to be fancy, but they do need to be high resolution,
Yes.
Yeah.
and sharp, unless you're going for something artistic that is, not that way, but you're going to need some sharp ones in the mix too. Like we talked about, that ratio of live shots, creative shots, and like kind of standard, portrait,
Yeah.
photography where you can see everyone.
Kind of comes down to like what the band's end goal is too.
Yeah.
Like some bands, they're just doing it as a hobby.
Yeah.
But if you're not, like if you're a
Yeah.
band that really wants to take it to the next level, you really maybe looking at getting signed or getting on a good bill at a good venue. These are the sorts of things that I think you need. If you're just doing it for fun, it's whatever. You still want to give your fans content, I think. Like that's part
Yes.
of it. But if you're trying to take it to a professional degree, then you want to have the photographs and the artwork and all of the serious things outside of your music that go along with making you look like a professional band who takes it seriously.
And that's, nowadays we live in this content creation world. People kind of fall in love with you first. They like you as a person first. So they have to
100%.
know who you are as a person.
Yeah.
But if I just have some blurry photo of you playing in some dark hall from 2015 and you've been in a band for 10 years, it's kind of like, I need to know who you are. I need to know information. We're always trying to dig information when people send us stuff in and we do the reaction videos. We're always trying to dig for information. And a lot of bands just don't have bios. They don't have any information. Who's in your band?
Yep.
There's barely any pictures, no face to name. And it's like, that's kind of part of the game there. I know you're doing music to do music, right? But at the same time, if I really love your band, I'm going to want to know
Yep.
everything about that. So you got to, and that's not just me. That could just be a random person that really likes your band. But if there's no information about it, you might not be so invested in that band
Yeah.
because you don't know who's singing to you or their story, or you really got to be able to tell your story, It's-
So agree with everything that you just said from a marketing standpoint and just a musician standpoint. Storytelling and, identifying with someone. I mean, humans are, we're connection seeking and we look at faces to connect. I mean, not saying that you have to be like some kind of supermodel to sell your music brand, but just matching a face to a voice and connecting with someone and their story is so freaking important. So I really agree with all of that. And I think even from a content creation standpoint, and as far as like when to do that stuff, if you do hate it, like the whole shebang is a great idea because like a lot of times for my marketing clients and for bands, if they're recording, it's like, well, do it all at once. If you're paying someone to engineer, like hire a photographer if you can, or find someone to come in and do it with their cell phone, whatever. Grab some promo shots around that time so that, you batched it all, just like you guys do with your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's done. You got some in studio shots, maybe outside the studio. There's a couple brick walls out there or some downtown, you got that done, and then have somebody come to a show, and then you've got all the promo stuff that you
Yeah.
need to like launch your next album. It's all there.
Yeah. And that's at the end of the day, like, I don't want to call anybody out, but for me, it's almost just kind of being lazy. It's like, I understand being in a band is a lot of work, but being in a band also entails more than just us getting together and jam. If we're serious, like you said, Nick, right?
Yeah.
Like, assuming everybody's serious and not
Right.
just, fucking off or just jamming to jam.
Yeah.
And we got a Facebook page because, we have a few songs that maybe our grandma will listen to or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, you got to have that. Like you said, I love the batch creation thing too. Like, just batch a bunch of photos one day and just kind of filter those out for the next 3-4 months, and you got enough right there. But
Exactly.
just
Don't
comes
blow
down
your
to-
load and post 45 photos from the session
Right,
the next
right,
day.
yeah,
There's a little
exactly.
bit of advice.
Yeah, exactly.
I see
But-
people do that a lot of times. Where it's like, you should have hung on to those and strung them out. But
Yeah. And that just goes down. I mean, look up a little bit of marketing. I have bands hit us up. I had one hit us up like, hey, we're a band. Can we do a interview with you guys? But a lot of times I want to make sure you're an established band and actually doing things. But then when I click on your band and you don't have anything there, I don't have anything to talk to you about in an interview because you haven't really done anything, you know? So
yeah. And you can, and likewise, you can not really be doing a whole lot. And, my favorite thing that I like to say is, I'm kind of like a little brat. I like to push my way up to the front at shows, and I like to push my way in line, not in a rude way that takes advantage of anyone, but I will push my way to the front of the line and try to get noticed. And you can certainly do that with your music as well. Like, even if you don't have a huge established following, even if you've only been at it for 3 months, you can look on paper a lot more important than what, people may be perceiving you.
Right.
And get a lot of opportunities that way because, it's face value for sure.
And I think a couple of things too. I think about buying CDs or tapes or albums even, and the first thing we all do as soon as we get it on the player is we're rifling through, the jacket, and we're looking at the pictures and we're reading the lyrics, and all that stuff now is shifted to the internet, and that's fine. Your Spotify or whatever else, your Bandcamp, but look at a band that maybe you say you want to emulate or you respect regardless of the music. Just go to their social media presence and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
You should be fast tracking that at some point. Like, let's not sit here and act like you're writing songs every minute of every day. At some point, your fingers get tired, your brain gets tired. Set the instrument down, figure it out. Like, get on a YouTube how to do this thing, or ask somebody that you know personally and just say, hey, I need to up my social media presence. I need to make it look important. I need to, have the whole layout full of artistic expression and photographs, and it just makes you look something that people want to be so much more invested in than a one-time listen. Like, yeah, the music was cool, and that's it. But when I can see the members, their faces, I can read the lyrics, I can see the artwork, there's just so much more. It just brings the whole world to life. So I would say look at a famous band and how they present themselves and start to emulate that immediately. Like, 'cause you're not writing songs all the time.
And it also shows that you really care about your music because you're doing those extra things. That means you're putting in work. And anytime I see somebody put in work, that, for me, as a workaholic, that I respect that to the highest level because I'm like, you're
100%.
putting that work in. So maybe, and if I stumble across your band without hearing your band and I see this badass photos or good high quality stuff and layout, I might want to check your band out. So like you're almost kind of opening that door in reverse the other way too, It's it's
and
what
speaking
image are
of
you putting out there,
sneaking in, you guys are no secret to this piece that is kind of a little bit of a trade secret, and like a hidden card in your hand is, outside of everything that you guys just spoke about, which is all completely spot on, promoting other people.
Yeah.
Will jettison you because you guys are doing it right here on this podcast.
Doing our best.
And part of that is, like you said, being a workaholic, showing, your care and your passion and the energy that you choose to devote to other people's bands and the music the music scene in general. But a even bigger part of that is, speaking to people's own personal hubris, which is something that I used when I was building the Tonguecutter channel. And we don't have like a huge amount, an insane amount of followers or anything right now. But as far as getting noticed quickly and having high levels of engagement, one of the biggest things that I did was promote other people.
Yeah.
I would go in and I would create reels for other bands that were playing shows and promote them on our channel, not in ways that diminished what we were doing, but just saying, hey, we see you and this is who we support. And what happens, of course, is, if you make a piece of content about someone, you guys know this, the first thing that they're going to do is share it to their channels.
Yep.
Because everybody loves something about them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't forget about, the power of flattery, too. And I mean that with, sincere efforts, because, we're not here to try to blow smoke up anybody's butt or anything
Right.
like that. But, I think that besides focusing on your own band and doing all those things and putting in the work, I think when you show up for other people in the scene and you help to promote other people, you can ride the coattails of that. I mean, it might sound kind of sleazy, but I mean, legit, that is, a really good technique to attach yourself to something else that's successful. It's much like the emulation that you spoke of.
And when you're a DIY band and you're just maybe say a local band, then you kind of need to network in that way, in that capacity. You need to kind of attach yourself to a scene. You need to elevate the whole scene and not just yourself.
Yep.
One of the things I noticed that we've gotten away from on social media is there used to be like a Tag Tuesday. And they tag every single band that, hey, these are my boys, go check them out. Well, I think we kind of like oversaturated that idea.
Yeah.
Because you're throwing like, here's 10, 20 band names that I want you to go and dig on.
Yeah.
And that's too much.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you need to I think bands could bring that back, because now I only see bands promoting themselves.
Yeah.
That's all I see. Just here's what we're doing. I can't afford to allow you to think about another band.
Yeah, so wrong.
And take your attention away from my band. I think you need to kind of reconsider that. Let's not give people 20 bands to think about on Tuesday. Let's just do one. Hey, by the way, these are our boys. They just did a show, or even better, they got a show coming up.
Yeah.
Yep.
We want you to go dig on their music really quickly. Boom. Every one of their fans just became one of your fans, in
That's
my
right.
opinion.
And they will share that. And if you look back on literally the Tonguecutter Instagram content,
Yep.
before we were playing shows, that's exactly what I was doing, was creating reels. And I'm like, hey, Chantal from Tonguecutter here. Here's the shows I'm going to go to this week.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm promoting that and putting that out. And I meant it genuinely
Yeah.
and honestly.
Yeah.
So that is, one of the pieces. But yeah, absolutely. And then you're attached to that success in a way too. And people do notice that when you show up. I've done the same thing with my camera when I show up to shows, when I'm providing a quality service for free for someone else, or just as an act of kindness. It gets you through a lot of doors. It's like I casually show up at the Pyramid Scheme, 7 years ago, and I'm like, hey, Mets, what's up? I'm here to photograph you and give you all the photos. And they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Let's hang out. And I'm like, yes, this is my ticket to getting in, but I'm doing something for
Right.
someone.
You're providing value, so
Yes.
it's always a value exchange, right? Like, I mean,
100%.
and at the end of the day, especially if you're a newer band, and we'll get back to the Heart on Your Sleeve Fest here in a second, but building that community, like you said,
Yeah.
but also being able to I lost my train of thought. Oh, because it's all about relationships. That's why
Yeah.
we're sitting in this room. That's why I've known you for however long I've known you. Well,
Got to be plus 20 years.
yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
She was two.
but I mean,
It's going to be like 26
I was on the
years
phone.
Yeah.
this year.
I was
Yeah.
on the phone for an hour with Dane the other day because
Yeah.
he's my friend, and I only met him because we hung out in your basement 20
Yeah.
years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so it's just like you're building these relationships.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you might get something out of it by saying, "Hey, I support this band or that band," but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's like these are genuine people that they're displaying their art in a different way than I am,
Yeah.
but I support that, and I have a relationship with these people, and that's a great way to get relationships with those people as well.
Definitely.
So that's how you build community,
Yeah.
friendships, all that, because then that person will be like, oh, they support us. I'm going to support them. Let's get a show together. Then you got 2 bands out of 4 that are friends or they're on the mutual same thing. Then you add a
Yep.
couple more bands. All of a sudden, look, now we're building a little community, So,
Very good vibes. The fest is that way. I cannot tell you in the last year that I would meet someone from like Lansing or Detroit, and somehow the fest would come up and they were like, oh yeah, heard about you.
Nice.
I heard about what you're doing. I heard about that. And
Yep.
it's like, and it's funny because I'm a little like nothing burger. Well, maybe I won't refer to myself as a nothing burger, but I'm just saying I'm a super, super small piece of that because it's all about the artists.
Right.
But if you are giving of yourself, I'm riding that train too. It's like more people, know about me now because of the fest than they do about Tonguecutter, to be honest. I hope that's going to change after our album release, but I'm just saying that I've gotten more notoriety actually for my personal band out of serving others
Right.
with the fest. And I enjoy that. So that wasn't the reason for it,
Right.
but it happened to be that way.
Well, this whole
It happened to be that
podcast is
way.
geared up toward like a new Infinite Design.
Yeah, this is all just a big ruse. This is all just a big ruse
Wait
for
till
a
the new
new.
Infinite drops.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, legit, you should do it
We're
because
going platinum.
you put the work in, and that's
Oh.
going to be that. I mean, you really do have that.
Oh, I got to wrestle Jay out of a band. No, I don't want to do that. I can't say that.
You guys got
Well,
the momentum building because of that, though.
just to be transparent, because we always are. I mean, Mod has 7 finished songs sitting in his lap for Infinite Design material that also has drums. So there is one coming. So
All right.
But that's not
You heard it
exactly
here
why we
first.
did this podcast. At
No,
the beginning of this
no,
podcast,
just
we we're like,
tongue in
Infinite
cheek.
Design is never a thing again. It's in the dirt. We put out the album. Please just go listen to it and support us on Bandcamp or buy it or whatever. That helps. But we never do that.
You know
for
what would
that,
be so cool? Even if you didn't plan on playing it out, how cool would it be to do a debut as like a warm up for? Because I was just talking to Ben about this. I'm like, I wish I had some type of like performance art to put on before the bands when we open doors. How cool would it be to have like a debut album that you knew was like, let's say, a side project that you weren't going to necessarily play out live? Those types of things are the exact type of exclusive little bits of content that I feel like would be like an extra juicy thing, like, hey, the fest doors open at 3:30, and though they aren't playing, you'll get a chance to hear the brand new Infinite Design album, which you may never see live.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a little thought.
That's cool. I like that.
Fun stuff.
Anybody that wants to listen to our music, I'm instantly for that idea. Anyway, any way possible.
Yeah. Especially because we did put a lot of hard work into it.
Of course.
Especially recording, mixing it, and all that stuff too. So on top
Go
of
listen
that,
to the last one. Jesus, put a lot of work into that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get back to Hard on Your Sleeve.
Yes,
Fest. So you
on
had
the
talked
fuss.
about the talent. So I think that's a great segue into the, because I would love to talk about, I have a question here for you, but we're going to get to that involves us, but we'll talk about that more at the end. Let's talk about these bands. Let's talk about this talent that you speak of. There's a few bands on here that are on my list, but they were just off my head. I know you got the flyer, but obviously you got all the information here, and you got maybe a little fun fact or something you want to share, but
Yes.
I'm going to let you take the floor and
Absolutely.
go ahead and tell us what you want to tell us now about the talent and
Well,
what that's gonna
we'll
look
go
like.
backwards.
Sure.
Headliner first, because it parlays into exactly what we're talking about as far as community. So we did reach a little broader as far as like West Michigan. We expanded a little bit this year, which I think is cool. And we're definitely always going to be keeping it like Lakeshore, Michigan, West Michigan based, I believe. But we like the idea, obviously, of everybody being in Michigan. So our headliner is from a little bit, a smidge farther away. Kalamazoo, not that far for us, right? But I love the idea of parlaying like community in with them, because I really honestly believe that both Blake and Garrett are really cut from that same cloth. They're like salt of the earth dudes that are very much invested in local music community and have done a whole lot for their music community beyond their band. Blake is actually, so they're a 2-piece, and I would say like kind of heavy, sometimes doomy, kind of sludgy noise rock. Super cool engineered sound. Blake himself is an audio engineer. He actually mastered our album. So he does that for a living, and it's really cool to see him like engineer the sound of their shows. He like makes all of his own pedals and stuff. Emerald Circuits is his pedal company. And their drummer, Garrett, actually manages the Runoff in Kalamazoo. Are you guys familiar?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so, both of them are definitely like labor of love people for the community. Blake is mastering people's albums, and they're both like the kind of guys that you can go to, for lots of advice as far as like, establishing your band and just, genuine like nuggets of knowledge. I think they're working really hard, and they're always happy to like share that for other bands who are like trying to book shows and stuff. Garrett really impressed me. I remember we were messaging back and forth about touring, and he sent me like his own personal like Google document of places that have been like really great to book with, or really advantageous to talk to, like little local venues that spots that he has mapped out across the United States and all these details and the stuff he's working on. And that is the type of stuff that people usually keep private
Yeah.
because they don't want others to win.
Yeah.
So just right out of the gate, all music aside, I love those two for that. They want everyone to succeed. Obviously, Garrett's running a venue and doing just that. And then, Blake with a mastering aspect. But I love that they share a lot of knowledge. So we're really excited on a personal level. I really enjoy their music. There is some really good stuff to check out. They just put out a full length with Learning Curve Records. And then they have some other stuff on their Bandcamp from before, too. And I'm going to forget the name of their prior record label, even though I had it in the first page of my notes, which I'm now missing. Luckily, I know those guys like the back of my hand, right? We played a bunch with them. They rule. Great, energy live. And I think it's really cool that we have a 2-piece headlining because that's kind of like, I feel a little rare, a little unusual. And they're the only 2-piece on the bill this year. We had some last year. And it was funny because I remember, was it you that said, you guys don't have any 5-pieces on this year, remember? We did. Yep. So we've got 5 and 6-piece. So that'll be good.
Cool.
And so really excited.
So that's Bronson Arm.
Bronson Arm is our headliner. Yep. So they're going to be later in the evening. I don't have exact times yet, but if you go back and you look on the Instagram page, you'll see that I put little short reels and videos and sample music up of each band. And I kind of talked about general time frame of when we think they're going to go on. Additionally, you can go to the website and you can hit up all kinds of cool stuff there. We have your documentary listed right in our resources, and yeah, absolutely. And you can also hit up the Spotify playlist. And hey, disclaimer: we understand Spotify, is not paying artists well. It sucks that it's such an easy platform to use and share.
A lot of people use it.
And a lot of people use it, but don't forget to go to everybody's Bandcamp. Absolutely.
Yep. That's what I live and die by. Bandcamp. Let's do that.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, at the fest, you're going to have the opportunity to directly benefit them by paying for your ticket and buying their merch. Because again, the lion's share of everything that we charge at the door is going to pay bands. Everyone, is getting taken care of. So next up is Fedaykin, which have you guys listened to them at all?
I'm familiar with them because I've seen them on, we're the Metal Maniacs Podcast, so I see every flyer of every band, and they're on my radar somehow, some way. What band did they used to be in? Or there was members of something that I've heard of before?
Yeah, so they've got like a couple. I'm probably gonna miss some of the like farther back references there, but they have some members that are in a lot of other bands. Like for example, their drummer Matt Yonker is also in Ozenza. He's in Glassfield, which is playing the fest.
That's the Ozenza. That's the one that
And then their bassist Nick also is in Glassfield, or was the original singer from them. So like there's, some crossover there of a couple bands that are playing the fest this year. And it's funny because just a little story from another band that's playing on the fest, Boob Sweat, and also many bands prior to that. My friend Adam Rossell, this summer, we were at Ed from THV's wedding. I was photographing. And Adam said to me, have you checked out the new Fedaykin album? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he's like, dude, you have to listen to that because you are going to love it. And he knows me well and he knows my taste well. And I'm like, well, hell yeah, let's do this. So on my way home this summer, shortly after it was released, I think maybe a month or something like that, I streamed it on my way home. And I was like, wow, I just absolutely loved it. Wet Work is the name of the album. It's a full length and it is so tasty, like lots of really cool, like mathy riffs. It's kind of like post-hardcore, a million good, like there's definitely, screaming and melody and mathy riffs and technical stuff in there, but it's like that bubble of like the 2000s, like everything I like in there,
It sounded like metallic hardcore to me when I heard the little clips of them playing, just because like some of the riffs they were playing and stuff was almost kind of metal, but the drummer and singer was more of the hardcore vibe, or
And some of the guitar riffs too will cross over. Like it's funny because like me and the singer were talking about this when we played together at Rake a couple weeks ago. And we were just saying how like it's interesting how like two totally different sounding bands can have like a same reference point. Like you might see about Fedaykin like for fans of Botch, And that rings true. And that's probably a lot of the, things I'm hearing in there are adjacent to like bands like Botch. And what's funny is people have said that about Tonguecutter, even though we're like more pared down and we're a little bit more grungy and we're not like as complex, but we're still kind of mathy. But it's funny, like when you're influenced by those bands, like the flavor and the little bit you take from them.
Mm.
So yeah, I really, think that as far as like the decades and that time frame, you're going to hear a lot of that in that album. And super cool. They put on a great show. So those guys are a 5-piece. They're kind of scattered around the state. But I think they're kind of like primarily based from Grand Rapids. And you can hear them on that Spotify playlist. Absolutely check out the new album. It is on their Bandcamp. Super good. So they'll be a little bit later in the evening, right before Bronson Arm. And then comes Glassfield, which does have some of those same members I was talking about. So it has members from Still Remains. If you guys, I know you guys are familiar. Yep. And the Ozenza piece with Matt, and then Lights at Sea, who I wasn't as familiar with, but I know that's noted in their stuff. And Nick was the actual original first singer of Glassfield, and he is the bass player in Fedaykin, so they also have like some connections there. But yeah, those guys, have you, so you're nodding your head, you guys have listened to Glassfield?
I haven't. I heard nothing but good things about him, though, actually. And
Yeah.
I believe, so the singer, there are the members that are in Glassfield still members of Still Remains? Because I know Still Remains did like a comeback show at Skeletones or something.
Yeah, they had two, like I think in a row,
Yeah.
like Pyramid Scheme and then Skeletones the next day. Yes, TJ is still the singer of that, and he is singing for Glassfield.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So
when I heard them, it was kind of funny, like I had heard them before, but I hadn't really sat down and digested like a lot. And so I've listened a lot more in the past couple of months. And there's a lot of like ethereal guitar. There is like metal overtones, but also for me, it's kind of got like this gothic kind of vibe to it. There's a lot of like melody, and I think it almost sounds like, a metal inspired, like heavier Cure type sound to me sometimes, or it might, some people might hear like some Failure type vibes, was one of the things I mentioned in the reel that we put out on Instagram. But those guys are actually a 6-piece.
Okay.
And
do they have a keyboard player?
You know what?
Where the hell do you get the 6th guy? That's what I want to know.
It's not the
That is
keys.
a really good question, because I could totally, now I'm like, oh yeah, did I hear synthesizer stuff going on? So you could be 100% right. I haven't seen them perform live yet, and I've seen other iterations of them where they had less people. So maybe they did.
Okay.
Wow.
I was just wondering, because usually when you say you have 6 or you have some weird 3-guitar setup.
Yeah,
or
you got
something,
somebody coming in doing something else.
Well, you got me sold on this. I'm really excited to hear this now.
Yeah. Well, also, I do not want to forget to mention, because we love all of our fabulous women musicians, that Britt is on bass, and she is the bassist for Ozenza.
Oh, hell yeah. Cool.
So absolutely love Britt. Shout out. We have played shows together for many moons, and she is awesome. So I'm very excited to see that and have some repping going on. So yeah, she plays bass for them, and yeah, I think that's going to be super cool. I'm excited to see them for the first time myself, and we'll figure out the keyboard thing. But yeah, those guys have a bunch of, connections too. I know I put in my notes that we had some members that went to high school together, and some brothers in there. And then, there's a lot of connections with all these bands. And that's what we were joking around about. Matt and Britt are married, of course. Matt Younger, who is the drummer for both of these bands. And that's what we were laughing earlier about, the little factoid that they have 8 cats. 8 cats.
Oof.
Y'all.
Oof.
That's a lot of kitty cats.
That's some Jackson Galaxy shit right there, boy.
It's up to 4.
Had to mention the fun factoid.
Uh-huh.
After those guys, or rather I should say before, is Tunnel of Love, who you can only hear on Bandcamp. I wanted to say that I wasn't able to put them on the Spotify playlist. And I don't know if that's just because they aren't up, or if that was a strategic move, in which case respect. But have you guys had a chance to hear those guys?
Nope.
No.
So
Jeremy's in that band, right?
Yes.
That's like his full-time deal now.
Yep.
Well, that and Snake Out. But
yes, and Brett sings.
Yeah.
So yeah, very straightforward power violence, hardcore, really moshy, love it.
Sounds like Jeremy's in that band.
Yep. And honestly, I love it. Like, I think it's killer. I really like the riffs. We played with them at the credit union last year, and I was like, wow, I really like these guys a lot. Yeah, super straightforward. I suspect that there's going to be some moshing going on with those guys. And they do have a demo up that you can check out that will give you those vibes on their Bandcamp.
Sweet.
So, yeah, I think that's going to kind of, you know, be a good. Actually, do I have the? I hope I have the correct order here. I'm pretty sure that I do.
Looks like I'm
Or
reading
do I have
along.
it? Are you reading along on the flyer?
I'm just going top to bottom, left to right.
Okay.
Yeah. So next
Yeah.
would be.
Yes. I was going to say, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have those flipped because I'm pretty sure that I had that correct.
Yeah.
So, yes. Oh, you guys, I don't want to forget to mention. Remember when I was saying there was a funny ICP?
Yes.
So, Tunnel of Love, 4th extended play album by ICP.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the connection where I
Yeah.
was laughing. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's right.
I always wondered if that was because I knew that was ICP because they had multiple. I think it was like a series or something. I thought they had
Yeah.
a few of them. It would be like these underground weird songs about the kind of like 2 Live Crew type, like disgusting, weird,
Yeah.
sexual shit. Like,
Right,
and I've
right.
always hated that kind of rap. Always. I've always hated the sexual, weird stuff, even in all the dark.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't get down with that shit. Because that's just me. But I was
Yeah.
wondering if that was a reference to that.
Mm-hmm. I was reading that
that's-
this morning. I'm
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, that's right. I totally forgot. So it was funny when
Talking
ICP
about
came up. I was
ICP.
like, oh man, I was just thinking about that this morning. Yes, which of course brings us to Iron Sharpens Iron.
Mm.
And I mean, for the fans, let me say what I know. And you know how I described you guys in the reel, you
Yeah.
know, as being, you know, a technical heavy metal 5-piece from Muskegon. I really enjoyed the covers album that you guys put out. I know that if I have it correct, I'm looking in my notes here really quick. Was July 2023 the last album that you guys put out of originals? Was that correct on your Bandcamp?
Should be 2022, I believe.
Or 2022,
Yeah,
okay.
that was like so I mastered the album and we also sent it to Bricktop. So I think
Aftermath of
Larry-
Tragedy, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Larry uploaded that version too of them, of their mastering of it as well. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was 2022 the last time we came out with something because I left the band for a while after that album.
Oh, okay, right
and
on.
then that's where the covers thing came in because that's all performed by Larry. That's not.
Gotcha.
Like the whole band's kind of weird because it started off with like if you listen to the early stuff, it's Larry, and then like just by himself, all instruments. I recorded it and all the early stuff, and then he started jamming with Adam. I got in the band. We put out that, and then he's kind of done stuff by himself in between. So it's just kind of a weird setup. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a strange band.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't realize that tidbit. I put a little bit of both on our Spotify playlist. I liked the Glassjaw cover. I thought it was cool. But I know Larry described that as being like, you know, stuff that was inspirational for him. And since I'm mentioning that too, you know, I'll mention, you know, what he had chatted about in our conversation was that, you know, really liked that you guys had taken a stance on mental health and suicide awareness and stuff like that. I know those are important factors. So we've seen conversations, but let me turn into the interviewer for a moment here. Because I'm curious, you mentioned that you left the band and came back, and where are you guys at as far as like recording another album? Are you doing that right now? Are you writing, or where are you guys at on the creative spectrum?
Yeah, we have 8 finished songs, and yesterday we just recorded the drums for 3 of them.
Sweet. So that's
So-
almost done.
Yeah, and then I'm going to be doing the guitar, vocals, and bass here, obviously with the respective members, and then we're actually sending it to Jamie King from Between the, that did all the BT Bam stuff,
Yeah.
all the Between the Bear. He's mixing and mastering the whole thing for us.
Awesome.
So we'll have 3 brand new songs in 2025, and we wanted to go that route just so we could get our foot in there. Because when you take that undertaking of trying to do 8 songs, fuck, it's a lot, and record it. I mean, we spent all day yesterday just getting 3 songs, but we spent more time setting up because they were trying all kinds of mics and did all that stuff. But
It is such hard work. It is such hard work. I completely understand. That's awesome.
I was sitting in the studio yesterday in Ross's studio, and I told those guys it's like that meme. It's like you see that meme, what my wife thinks I do in the studio, and there's hookers and Coke everywhere and everybody's partying and drinking. And I'm like, what we actually do in the studio. And I'm just sitting there with my hand in my face like, oh, my God, this is tedious as shit. But, I mean, I've been there. I've done that. Most of the time, I'm the one that set it and everything up and recording. But this time I wanted hands off all of that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll do some work, but I'm not doing all that because I don't want to hate the
there
songs.
like your back hurts and you're like, you got headphones on and there's a little trickle sweat and you're like, one more. I think I could do it better.
Right.
One more.
And I don't want to make this about me or, Iron Sharpens Iron, but that's another day. But just as far as this whole process goes, I'm really proud of these 8 songs we put out, but I approach this music completely different. I take what Larry has with his ideas and stuff because I want to make it different than anything that Nick and I have ever done, where you're always going to see my influences in my riffs, but I wanted to write almost a more simple, toned down version of a lot of things. Like some of the riffs are pretty simple, and I just wanted to keep it that way. Just wanted to keep it heavy, kind of like, a less technical version of Despised Icon, if you're going to say something like that.
That is a, interesting point coming from you because, of course, I was going to mention, for fans of technical stuff, it's always fun to come and watch you play. You're very proficient that way. But it's interesting to hear you say that because even though I was never quite as technical as you, I think, my current project is also more pared down, and there's some beauty in that. Not that we don't love the technical stuff because we do, but it's an interesting journey to like play a little bit, more simplified guitar. And it does, one thing I noticed, and maybe you'll just agree or disagree with this, but I feel like it opens up a little bit more negative space to sort of experience a song and to experience vocals and singing and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm very adamant with Larry about cutting down the amount of vocals. Everything I preach about on this show is the type of stuff that I want to do with Nick and I's music, or even the Iron Sharpens stuff, where it's like we're gonna have a pretty basic structure. We're gonna repeat shit. We're gonna have this theme with all of our riffs that are like we might pick 12 notes, and them 12 notes will be throughout, and we might add a little here or there, but we're not going off in this weird soupy riff shit. Like I just want to write stuff that people can kind of bang their head to. That's really kind of where I'm
good
at.
Songwriting is good songwriting.
Yeah,
and not everybody is Dillinger Escape Plan, and we all know that, like, where you're like, God, I wish they would have came back to that one riff. It's okay to come back to the one riff. I swear, I think we talked about this the last time I was on.
For sure. We always talk about that.
Yeah, I'm with you too of not singing over everything.
Yeah,
there is a ton of empty space on our record. I think compared to most.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with that. So
I want to play interviewer now too, and ask Jay a question about his writing process. So I'm sitting on these Infinite Design songs, and I've told you I love them all, and they sound. I swear, it's just me in my head. I'm like, man, I feel like Jay wrote this for me. Probably not true. Probably not true. He probably wasn't like, oh, Maud's gonna love this. But I'm listening to it, and I'm like, man, this is all of it. I love it. Now I'm wondering, like, with the Infinite Design stuff, you're leaning one way. Now we talk about like some of the influences that you have that I'm not big on, like say maybe, what was it, Nails?
Yeah.
Maybe, and Knock Loose, which I'm cool with, but I'm not high on.
Right.
But like, do you think that you steer some of your writing from those influences into Iron Sharpens Iron?
Yeah,
where
for
it's
sure.
like Infinite Design is this thing over here where it's, what Maud and I like.
Yeah, melodic, technical.
Yeah.
Like I have no boundaries of what notes I pick on the guitar, but it's going to be melodic and minor key and like,
and that
groovy too, right?
That works with Larry and Adam too. Like they're down with that stuff.
Like a lot of our riffs are like, 1 through 5 is where we want to live most of the time. You'll see me do a little sweepy here or a little something here, but I want to keep it like that because Larry's very into the hardcore stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to take those influences where that's not where you come from.
Right.
So our shit's always going to be more metal, right? Like and more like maybe technical or more melodic, whereas this stuff's more like just kind of dirty in your face. Like how many cool things can we play off riff 1?
Right.
How would you say
That's all
that
it is.
deviates? Like if you were going to say like, 10 out of 10, that 2022 album that you recorded sounded like this, or I guess maybe that's not a great way to say it, but like what is the, level of change from that 2022 album to what you guys are getting ready to put out?
Well,
As far as that goes, the transition from like maybe more technical to hardcore.
yeah, because that album, a lot of that was Larry as well. On the other album, they had a batch of songs. I came in, I tried to make a few of them more songy. Like, hey, while you put all these riffs together, we got to kind of structure this better. Some of the stuff was kind of like, just experimenting with things. I think this new album is a lot more intentional. I think Adam has laid off a lot more because he was still kind of in that infinite design mode where he wants to just grind and be technical all the time.
Right.
I just told him, I was like, the less grind the possible.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to be heavy, like,
Yeah.
you know, but he wants to still grind and stuff. But there's just, there's a big difference between that album and this album because I think there's a lot more intentionality with this new stuff too. Like, I really sat down and took the time to put the riffs, changed a lot of shit. The other stuff we kind of just put out because we wanted to put something out. This stuff was like, we really took our time to put the time and effort in these songs. And then anytime you deal with me, you're always dealing with a lot of changes too, because I'll sit on something for 3 weeks and then I'll come to the table. They have their parts all down and everything and be like, that riff sucks. Sorry. And they just look at me like, we've been playing it this way for, and I'm like, that's the way it goes.
As long as
dude.
you're always refining
Yeah.
towards a better product, hey, you know.
And but every time that happens, they're not sad that I changed that part
Right.
because it's that much better. And they're like, oh, I'm so glad we changed that part. I'm
Right.
like, see?
Yeah.
I kind of know what I'm talking about. So, like, but they trust me. So that's why I appreciate that those guys have been playing with me for so long. Or Nick, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to make those changes. Well, that's awesome to hear. I'm really excited.
So, and thank you for letting us play because, you know, I think we represent the scene just as much as anybody else for as long
Absolutely.
as we've been doing it and the members and everything, you know.
Hell
so
yeah.
it's-
I'm pumped. I'm pumped to see it.
You know, if Nick and I had a drummer, we would be out there jamming something too, you know.
Yeah.
Not necessarily at Hard on Your Sleeve Fest this year or anything. I'm just saying, like, if we had a guy that
Well, get yourselves ready.
right, like, yeah, I'm just saying, if we had a guy, we would be doing something. If we could find
about
another really sweet
14
guitar
months.
players and another really good drummer, we would probably be doing our own thing, you know. But
It's always a challenge to
Man.
keep projects going,
But
and
but-
especially with a larger amount of people in the band.
But I try to mindfully make this band different than the stuff that I would do in Infinite Design or with
Yeah,
Nick, you know.
Yeah.
I think
like-
you've done that
Yeah.
like, successfully
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah.
and if that means being a lot more simple and easy and keeping it basic, like I'm cool with that. I'd rather just play tight
Yeah.
than worry about playing more notes.
Yeah.
I'd rather play that one riff. Like
Oh,
you can hear them chords I'm playing fully. You know, that's kind of
Yeah.
my focus is like how tight can I be, you know?
Well, it's
Absolutely.
something that you learn about yourself songwriting wise over the years. Like, in the beginning, it was just like a lot of riffs and just technicality and just going off. And then you just see the progression over years where like less is more. And you're just like, oh, we're only going to do like 3 or 4 riffs in the song, what have you. And it's going to stay to a theme and it's not going to just be crazy riff soup. And that's, you know, a testament to your songwriting over the years, Jason, and realizing that about yourself because, yeah, the old stuff is like, I can't even remember how to play any of it. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
too much.
And if you are a mathy musician, chances are you are actually underestimating how complex your music actually is.
Yeah.
Because to you, it sounds like elementary. It's funny, we run into that even though, you know, speaking of infinite, you know, I would say that a lot of the riffs that you write are infinitely more technical than the stuff I write. But what's funny is even in Tonguecutter, where I was like, I'm really paring this down, it's going to be simple. And then, you know, we'll have someone on for guest vocals or we're playing, they'll be like, you guys' stuff is totally mathy. What are you talking about? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
time signature this is even in. And
Right.
I'm like, to me, this sounded so like basic.
Sure.
And I not like out trying to, you know, but I mean, I just think that, you know, when you think that way, if you are a technical player, chances are people are thinking, you know, you're way more technical than like what even you're thinking.
Right.
It's cracking me up. We had a videographer come and film us when we played at Rake. And well, actually, I didn't have her. She came and did it, which was amazing. But in any case, it was funny because we played after Fedaykin and Raph from Fedaykin's in the front. And there's this shot where she's behind my shoulder and we're playing this part at the end of Minnow. And the part, if you're listening out there, Raph, it's in 7/8 time signature. But I'm just laughing because we don't, you know, we don't often think about that. But it's funny because it's over my shoulder. The angle is literally, you know, focused right on Raph. And he's in the front. He's like,
Trying to count it.
and he was
yeah.
literally counting with his fingers. And like, and I loved that. I was like, this is my favorite clip of the year. If that's not a math musician, standing in the front trying to like figure out what time signature. So I bet you guys are, you know, it's so much more complicated than what you even think.
Yeah, probably.
You know, by
And-
paring down, it's probably becoming even more accessible in a very good way.
And I think that's, you know, like with your own writing, sometimes you just write a riff, right?
Yeah.
And you don't realize it's a 7. You're just feeling it and it
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
cool. So then you show it to somebody and they're like, what the fuck are you
Yeah.
doing? And like, because, you know, if you show somebody like Adam, I'm going to put him on blast right here, but he's a real county. He's got to count everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just throw something at him. It'll be the simplest thing in my mind.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he's like, what the fuck are you even doing? And I'm just thinking, man, that's like super easy. Like we could really get technical if you want to, but I don't really even want to open that door. Like, so it's like you kind of, like you said, you kind of don't know until you start showing somebody, and then they're kind of like, yeah, to me, that's just run-of-the-mill everyday shit.
Yeah.
That's just how I do it.
Sometimes at band practice, we'll count stuff like classic because for the most part, like Cam and I are both, band nerds and I can do it that way. Or sometimes I'll be like, well, if you listen close, the part is like coffee in the morning, breakfast, I need the bed. Like I'll have some like, mantra that I'll have. Then I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's the one riff about the caterpillars, because it just like a phrase will make more sense than counting it.
You can attach it to that.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you are a mathy musician, like I loved what you said because like 7/8 or 5/4 will hit so hard. You're like, this is a groove. How is nobody else in this groove? Like this feels like 4/4.
Yeah.
This is
And 5s and 7s are so weird too because they kind of never resolve. So you could just ride that over and over and over because it's a 5, so it always lands on that weird beat. But it's like, okay, we're already in the next measure, so when do we actually stop? But I don't ever sit down and say I'm going to write in a 5. I'm going to write in a 7 or whatever. I just write what I feel, and if it's in a 5 or it's in a 7. But with this, like with Iron Sharpens Iron, to make things more simple, like I just try to stick to 4/4 and 6/8. Like, just on purpose. Like, like, and anything else, I would write a 5 just because I'm feeling that. But like, I purposely don't do that. Like in this band, and I guess that's where I say it's a little more simple.
And there's a lot more ways to be complex melodically and lyrically and everything else other than time signatures.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
You can have symphonic music that's in 4/4 that is more complicated than anything one of us has ever done.
Yeah, exactly.
So the layers, can be there.
For sure.
Agreed.
Well, kind of as a seg to maybe being slightly more simplified as far as less members, the band playing right before you guys, you guys are going to kind of kick that off of being like, a pivotal, heavier point of the evening. But if you're familiar...
I don't mean to interrupt, but please mosh during our shit.
Of course.
Show me that my riffs are doing something. That's all I give a fuck about.
Yes.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, absolutely.
I needed to put that little note.
Everybody's going to...
start the mosh here. After that, fucking do it too. But
everybody's going to be ready. And I think everything leading up to you guys is like super high energy too. Have you seen Boob Sweat at all? Have you guys checked them out? On a female? Yeah, so have you seen the drips of boob sweat that happen on us? Which legit, this is amazing. First of all, Kate, front woman for this band, who is incredible. I just have to say that if you go and listen to them, they're great. But I will tell you that if you see them in person, it's a whole different energy and experience. Like, really, really, really great live. And I love Kate's energy. She's an awesome front woman. And what's hilarious is she really yes, it is boob sweat. It's what you think it's about. There's no coded thing there. Yeah, right. But it's funny because I couldn't make it to a gig one time that they played it right because I was home with Greta, and she sent home with Ben a little towel that's like embroidered. So it's a boob sweat towel.
Nice.
And I legitimately tuck it in between like my 5150 and my Marshall cab to dry myself off. The guys were trying to hang it on the wall at the band practice space. And I was like, that is legit my boob sweat towel. Give that back.
Yeah, you might not want to handle that. It is what the
I'm
name
like,
says.
I need that.
Yeah.
So those guys are a 3-piece from Grand Rapids, and they're kind of you'll see them labeled as Riot Girl punk, which I do resonate with, but I think they're also really melodic and fun and kind of poppy, but they're also fast and high energy, and just really great performers. So I'm excited about them. I think that they're high energy, and I know that it's gonna build some good engagement right before you guys go on too. So
nice. Yeah,
I'm really excited about that. Kate is one of 2 femme-fronted on the bill. So we do have ladies in bands, and then we've got 2 of our bands that are fronted. So that is exciting for me. I'm trying to think if I had any fun factoids about them, and I don't think I have any funny stories except for probably me and Kate broing down over Lions stuff, because I remember last time when we played together at Puck Cider, the the Lions were playing, and it was like happening right at that moment, and we were just like, "What's going on?" And she's like watching the game on a tablet. It's funny. Super fan.
Nice.
But yeah, so they have a lot of releases on Bandcamp. Go check them out. Their most recent release was Sorry We're Open, November 2023. We've got them on the Spotify playlist. Super great to listen to. And like I said, just really, really fun to listen to live. After those guys, or excuse me, before, because I'm working backwards here.
Yep.
We have Returner. Familiar with that's another band. Speaking of Addison.
Addison did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he mentioned that to us either in passing.
Yeah, I gave him and at that point I jumped on the Facebook and I gave him a follow. So I'm trying to familiarize with myself with them over time.
Okay.
So speaking of math, I saw them play live for the first time actually with Tiny Tree at Rake. And I think it was shortly after they wrapped up recording that album with Addison at A Long Time Machine.
Okay.
For anybody that isn't familiar, man, Addison has just been turning out some incredible records. He is so talented. And I think we're so much alike personality-wise. Like we always joke about being like twins. He is, what I do with marketing, he does with sound engineering. I feel like he is really fabulous at like pinpointing what's special about an artist and like really magnifying that when he records them. And Returner, no exception to that. I got to preview, their EP that's not out yet. It's so good. It is so good. I cannot wait. I hope they do something with it. I genuinely think it's going to get them picked up by somebody. But super mathy. Super mathy.
Nice.
And very like complex melodic punk. I was joking around before about it sounding like what it would be like if Captain Beefheart started like a punk band and had like Fat Mike from NoFX singing. So it's just like around every corner there's like a really interesting like resolve or like mathy time signature, but it's also well written like key signature wise. So really enjoy them. Definitely nice and tight live. So they'll be, kicking off kind of like a heavier punk sound. We have a lot of punk happening leading up to Iron Sharpens Iron, which I'm glad. As you know, like Muskegon, we're known for that. And so
it'll be a nice segue to go from the punk to the hardcore, the more hardcore aspect of the evening too.
Absolutely.
It'll be a nice flow, I think.
Yep, I think so too. We didn't have a lot of indie bands this year, whereas last year, we had a little bit more of that maybe. But I'm sure we will in subsequent years. And there's definitely those flavors in the other bands. But we do have a pretty like punky start to the day. Which leads me backwards to the Burdens, if you guys are familiar with them. So that's another.
Yeah, I have one of their
band.
shirts because I actually work with a drummer.
Oh, awesome!
Sweet.
They are really nice dudes too. I like to give people a shout out on like a ethical level when I see that they're just really supportive in the scene, and I think that those guys are genuine nice guys that I like seeing them show up for shows and being neighborly to their fellow musicians as far as like sharing like a show location, like that kind of stuff always impresses me. When I see someone and they're like, hey, we played at this cool venue. Have you ever heard of this place? Here's the contact for it.
Nice.
You should try to set up a show there.
Yeah.
I love it when people are like that. It shows me that they really care about the music scene.
Right.
And that always impresses me. So shout out to those guys for being cool that way. And yeah, they've got some albums that their last album is Knuckle Sandwich. That one was April 2024. Yeah, and they've got yeah, exactly.
To the moon.
Right. They've got releases on there dating back to 2021, and they went to high school together but didn't know each other until they were looking, it said that Evan was looking for musicians, and then, they kind of ended up meeting each other and making it all happen. So kind of knew each other in passing, but put that all together. And then the first time that I had met them, they hopped on a bill at the last minute that we needed a third band for, and we're down with that. So a little bit more kind of like straightforward punk. They did some cool covers when I saw them and just kind of had like, your classic punk sensibility. And I think they're going to be a great like earlier day aspect too, because even though, they could play at any time of the night, I do like the beginning portion of the day also to be something where I feel like, for our all ages aspect, if you did have kids and you wanted to come out, not that you couldn't stay all day. We're all parents. We're looking out, you know, if you're with your guardian and your parent and stuff like that is keeping you safe. You know, I'm all for it because we're always going to take care of anyone younger in our midst. But I think the earlier portion of the day is also, you know, a really cool like musical experience, you know, for our younger ones too, and it's going to be appropriate and stuff like that. So, great way to, you know, introduce the youngins to the punk rock.
Right.
Sweet.
Yeah, I do know that Caleb is his name, the drummer. He does listen to a lot of metal too, and I actually asked him when we were trying to do the AIC thing. He was one of the drummers I asked at that time, and he said he was interested, but he was just really busy with the burdens.
Right,
but he's always wearing like a Death shirt, Megadeth shirts and stuff. So like the dude likes metal and shit. Like,
yep.
So.
Yep.
Cool.
The influence is there, even if it's not.
Yeah. And that's what I just thought was interesting because his band, he's always wearing all these metal shirts and shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool. It's like an old school Megadeth one too.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's the good shit too. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a tight player.
Yeah.
Those guys always sound good alive. So that's awesome. Yeah. Well, speaking of, you know, the youthful aspect, that brings us back to the show opener. And it's kind of funny because they're the youngest. And I think several members just graduated from high school in the last year.
Okay.
And I love that and really had my faith in, you know, our younger generation restored when I saw them for the first time at Epic tabletop games in Grand Haven when they were still putting on shows.
Nice.
And I just thought it was really cool. I showed up, you know, they're 3-piece doing their thing, kind of playing, you know, and they really have the vibes down. Like they're, you know, genuinely have that really like right girl punk flavor. And they had like cool zines on the table and they did a Stooges cover and stuff. And I was like, I have faith in the children. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to call you children, but femme fronted, you know, just it was really neat to see that happening. I was like, wow, this is like genuinely one of the coolest things I've seen from, you know, musicians this young in a minute.
Sweet.
So I loved that spirit, and that's exactly, you know, what we're trying to promote at the fest and you know, holding up younger musicians and the generations that will come after. So they've got releases as well up on their Bandcamp. They are on the Spotify playlist. They've got some cool merch. I thought it was awesome, you know, like I said when we played with them and I went to their merch table, I was like, is this a Lino print t-shirt? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, punk rock. So they've got the spirit. They've got, you know, a really cool approach. And I think they're fun to check out. And they've been playing a lot more in the area too. So they're going to kick things off.
That's Violet Scum.
Yep. Violet Scum, if I didn't say their name.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think you did.
I don't think I
just wanted
did.
to make sure.
Yeah. Let me work backwards all the way to saying their actual name, which is Violet Scum. Okay. Yeah. So Violet Scum, it was funny. We had a conversation going with all the bands, just kind of for admin purposes on the Instagram for the fest. And it was funny. They were telling me about recording and mentioned that the building that they were recording in had a bunch of like naked mannequins and a bunch of really badly taxidermied pumas. And I was like, what? I'm like, dude, and you guys didn't make a video? Like, come on, man.
No kidding.
Sounds like an amazing opportunity for a video. And speaking of funny factoids that were sent over to me, I wanted to mention that Fedaykin had mentioned that they actually first got together to play a Van Halen cover at Pyramid Scheme. Mm-hmm. Which I'm like, yes.
That's what started the band, huh?
That's what kicked it off. And,
Cool.
you know, as I mentioned, like Matt is drumming for 2 projects. And it was funny because when I first booked, you know, Glassfield and Fedaykin, I thought, and I'm putting them back to back in the lineup. I'm like, is that going to be too much for Matt? And everybody in both bands was like, Matt's going to love this.
Yeah.
You have no idea. And what's funny is I spoke to Matt about it when we played a show together like a couple weeks ago. And I was like, yeah, man, I was hoping I wasn't going to burn you out. He's like, I wish I was playing in more bands. I want to play more.
I think it'd be preferred anyway, just because of the fact they won't have to tear down and set back up.
Yeah, it's
True.
sitting right
And
there
he'll
too.
get like 10 to 15 minutes between something, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yep. We try to keep it to about that for teardown. We really hustled the bands last year. We were like, go, 10 minutes. You know,
that's good though.
Yeah,
we
we
need to get used to
backline
that.
stuff. I
Especially
think so
with
too.
DIY stuff, it's
Yes.
like go.
Yeah.
Like,
If you
because
like,
we're all trying to do this real quick.
Absolutely.
Like,
I think we've probably all played at the intersection at one time or another. another, and like it's go, 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 go.
Yes.
Like get your ass on stage and get your ass off stage and like move.
Important lesson to learn right off the bat. Nobody wants to watch you tear down or set up your gear for 30 minutes, man.
No,
It's horrible.
There's bigger bands, more important bands probably going on after us or you. So like, make sure that they have their time to sound check and set up. So
Exactly. And also a PSA to the fans. We love you so much, but please don't talk to us at that time.
Amen. Amen. Like I've been the worst because I'm like second to the vocalist. They have nothing to move. Like the bassist, I have very little to move. But Jay's always like, dude, move. Come on. Like right now is the time to move your shit.
Well, Nick will be like. Then like 3 people will talk to him, and he's sitting there talking like, "Dude, move that shit, and then go talk."
Yeah.
Just get it out of the way because Adam's got 4 million drums we have to get out of the way.
I've gotten better over the years.
We've got the biggest drum set, and everybody's already knowing that we're taking the fucking longest to set up.
Yeah. Between drums and then like, I used to just play with a stomp box. I kind of hate having a pedal board now. And you'll be like either setting up or tearing down, and you got like one of those little guys that's gone bad, and I'm like plugging stuff in, and somebody's like, so anyways, I was checking. I'm like, listen, I want to talk to you, man, but I'm freaking out right now.
Right, yeah. And that's what I always say on the show, too. A lot of that live angst is just making sure your shit works, making sure your shit's put on stage fast, and not everybody's like, why the fuck you taking so long? Or, that's part of the angst of the nervousness of the show. It's not even really the performance sometimes. Like, that's important if you take it as serious as the 3 of us at this table, right? But
because it's literally something different every time. You leave practice, everything's good. You get to the show, and a 1/4-inch cable is bad. You leave practice, everything is fine. You get to the show, and there is a jack that is bad. You leave practice, you get to the show, and a 9-volt is dead. You leave practice, you get to the show, and accidentally somehow your AB switch on your ABY pedal got switched to ABY, and one of your caps. It's like something different every time, dude. It's nothing but troubleshooting.
Everything's fine when it's in its right place in the practice session, but then you tear every single thing down and try to set it back up the way it was. Something's usually off.
Yeah,
especially,
or you have like a preamp tube that literally burnt out on the way to the show. Like that's just stuff that happened. How?
And on top of that, it's like you're so used to being in the practice room and hearing things a certain way, and it sounds at least good enough to get through practice, or you got it dialed in. It may not like be good for an audience, but it's good because you can hear everything. Then you get to the show, then you're like, and you don't even hear everything that you're normally hearing. So it's just so many factors that people don't really understand, that it's a lot more than just the performance.
Or if you play something that's really hot and squelchy, like a 5150, and at practice everything sounds good, and then you get to like a wide open like boomy space, and your 5150 is like,
yeah. Or
sorry, I just blew everyone's eardrums out.
Well, at least they experienced that.
Now you know what it's like to own a 5150.
Yeah. Or you get there and there's some like it sounds great at practice, and you get to the venue and there's some weird grounding problem, and your amp's making some noise, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's just shit like that. You just gotta get through it, but.
Yep, absolutely.
So we have Violet Scum. They were opening the show, and I guess that kind of leads us all back around to us, because I plan on doing the same thing we did last year, maybe just a little better for us. I want to capture everything as well, as long as Nick's okay with it. I guess I kind of put him on the spot on
that
live,
would be rad.
But, I want to do it the same, but what do you think we could do differently this year as far as us, like? Either to benefit the fest itself, to benefit the bands. I know one thing that I'm thinking about, I might just bring this setup because I have my little portable setup. I will be bringing headphones this year so we can hear each other better.
Yeah.
Some of the levels were kind of cranked because we were hearing so much background noise. So I'm just trying to think in my mind what I could do differently so we could kind of hear each other a little bit better and do all that stuff.
Shoot, you guys might have that feedback for yourself. I thought everything you did last year was amazing. I mean, trust that as a photographer and a videographer, I know exactly how much work it is to put on it was like almost a 2-hour documentary that you made. It was incredible. And I couldn't believe, I never would have had time to do that to myself. So to have that archived was just like so freaking cool. I loved the fact that, there was a full song from each band. I mean, what a cool thing for all of them too. I hope everybody's utilizing that. Probably need to go back to the archives from last year and make sure everyone knows that exists. I think they do, but it's really, I've used that myself for Tonguecutter and grabbed, pieces that you had from us. But I thought that was all rad. I mean, honestly, the only thing that I was thinking about changing for this year was I thought we could probably give away a few more tickets. Last year we did 2. I feel like we can do some more.
Okay.
And have it be kind of maybe a little bit more bountiful. But man, I don't know if I would have any constructive criticism. I thought that was also cool. I mean, yeah, we had the interviews going last year. You guys, obviously, you were filming bands, you were interviewing people. Um, it seemed like you were awful busy.
Yeah.
Like,
It
what
was a
more
long
can you
day.
do?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're serving the fest, serving the fans, serving the bands. You know,
Sure.
like I said, we could bring the headphones so we could hear each other a little bit better and block out some of that noise. The biggest part of editing that was taking all the audio that was fucked up because there was so much other noise and stuff going
Right.
on. But I almost want to work with you beforehand. If we can talk to these bands beforehand and be like, hey, look, the Metal Maniacs are going to be there. So maybe we could set up a schedule so I'm not trying to run around and grab bands. Like,
Yeah.
Excellent.
hey, would you guys like to talk to the Metal Maniacs before your set or after your set? But let's just make sure we have a schedule. So Nick and I will be at the table after this band's set. So let's make sure this band or two members
Great
of this
idea.
band comes over and talks to us
Yeah.
instead of us. They don't even know what's going on because I missed one band last year. It was the 2-piece band that had the drum machine pedal
Yes,
thing.
the mollusks.
I missed them, and I feel bad because it was the only band I didn't get. I
Gotcha.
don't want to have that happen.
We
this
will
year.
build that right into our schedule.
Yeah.
That's a fabulous idea. And I
So-
feel like it would make sense to just say directly after you tear down your gear and get it loaded up, head right over to the Metal Maniacs so that they're fresh off the stage and they don't have any stress going on.
Yeah, I
and-
was thinking that, or we could do it beforehand because the issue with that is then the other band might already be getting up there, and as soon as we try to talk to them, the other band starts because our only window is in between bands, you know.
Right.
So we might have to like schedule that. You know, we could get some. We could talk more after the show, but that's just in my mind what I was thinking to make it easier and. The bands know that we're there representing them, and you're going to have a little interview with us, and you're going to have some video and stuff, so they're getting something out of it as well. Like, so they can use the little, 5 minutes that they talk to Nick and I, on
Maybe if
that,
it wasn't immediately before or after, like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, but could we just schedule it and maybe we can work with the bands and just be like, hey, you're slated to talk to the Metal Maniacs. Pick maybe 2 or 3 members that you want to talk, because I don't need the whole band
Absolutely,
there. Especially if you're a 6-piece band, I don't have the time or equipment there in that setup to talk to all 6 people. It's kind of but we just need to know some blurbs about your band and the fest and how everything's going or whatever.
That's perfect. We can workshop that and figure it out. I
Yeah,
love the idea of building that into a schedule. It seems super smart.
Yeah.
I don't know if this would make a lot of sense logistically, but I'm just thinking off of my feet here. What about having the bands tell us, like, hey, this is the song we want you to record,
That's
Jay?
cool, too.
Yeah, like, because sometimes that might be the first song or the last song, so I don't know how well that would work for you in terms of logistics.
Oh,
but
that's perfect. I actually asked a few of the bands that I knew. Like, I asked Ed, like, hey, what song? And he's like, our second song's like the new one that we don't really have a recording of, so, like, can you get that one?
Okay.
So, but, yeah, that's perfect, too.
That's
like,
awesome.
Let me know what song you want.
Yeah,
and I'll
that'll
be on
be,
top of that,
everybody
too.
will appreciate that. So what we can do is we'll build that right into our questionnaires, because what we did last year was, I believe in January, so this will be coming out soon. We have a questionnaire that goes out to all the bands about their like stage specs and all of their stuff, how many members they have. We usually feed people. So, we've got like a couple, like might have some food things on there, set up, and we can build into our questionnaire what song they would like to have recorded, and where that will be in their set, and let them know a little bit about you guys. And we can certainly, in all of our info that we send out, get the scheduling for the interview too. But we can actually ask that right in our questionnaire. We'll build that question in so that we
Sweet.
know what one that they want to have covered. Yeah. That rules. I mean, I'm sure everybody's really going to appreciate that.
Yeah. And I also think, like, maybe you and I, we can just kind of have, like, we'll script out kind of what we like the questions, you know what I mean? So we're not just kind of babbling all over. Like, obviously the conversation goes wherever it goes because that's conversation, but we can have the few things that we want to make sure we get from each band, and you and I can discuss that and put that together. But I just think that'd be a lot more streamlined than me trying to run up, hey, can you come over to the table? And,
I know,
and they're
it's
like,
so
who
hard.
the fuck are you? I never met you before. I don't
Right.
know what you're doing over there, so it's like trying to get that info out beforehand, I think will be beneficial to the band.
100%. Yeah. And we're there to help you guys with whatever you need if we need to. We can either pass along email information if you want to send something out, or I'm happy to construct like an email just dedicated to that. Hey, here's your intro on Metal Maniacs Podcast and what they're going to be doing at the fest. You've already told us what song you would like recorded. here's the additional information. Here's who to look for. Here's a picture of them, and here's what it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically covered.
Nice.
And you're going to want to do A, B, or C. But yeah, I mean, I thought for how much you did have to run around last year, I know all about that. Those pains, it still turned out awesome.
Cool.
We'll be running around more this year with the band playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if any of it becomes too overwhelming, you just let me know because.
Well, I'm gonna have to pass the cam off to Mod during one of our songs because I won't be able to film it. I mean, I could always have a tripod there.
Actually,
too, but...
I was gonna mention that to you that I was gonna offer that myself,
okay,
or
that's
you
cool.
can too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Whatever you want to do.
You're the professional, but
I wanted to extend that to you, not because I don't think I know you would do an awesome job too, but I did want to extend that to you just because I'm gonna be there.
Awesome.
I will be taking photos, but maybe if you guys choose a song that's closer to the end of your set, I'll be able to do both. And also, if you have your camera, which I know would be ideal, that's perfect because I don't need to switch over from my settings. I'm sure, frame rate, everything else.
Yeah.
I can do it with your camera.
Yeah.
I'm really good at handheld footage for video, so
perfect.
We'll do that.
Cool. That's perfect.
Yeah, you can manage both.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't see no issue with it. I got one more question, then we'll just wrap this up because I think we get almost everything.
I don't have any more notes.
How long are sets? Are you like 20 minutes?
Yeah, last year we kept it to around 20 minutes. If people went a little over, like that was no biggie. Our headliner, I think, is just a smidge longer than that, but everybody's pretty succinct and short. And last year we had 10 minutes for teardown and setup. We beat that, believe it or not. Everybody was amazing. We did a lot of backlining, so there'll be conversations happening about that for musicians. But yeah, it was generally around 20 minutes, and I think everybody. Sneeze. No.
Oh.
It's gonna. I'm holding it in. Metal.
You said, I thought I thought there was a spider back there.
No, I was like speaking, and I'm like, is there a sneeze coming? No, I think I'm good. But yeah, last year everybody was pretty good at tailoring their sets to meet those. So 20 to 25 minutes, 10 minutes in between. Like I mentioned, our headliner a little bit longer, and we're starting a little bit later than we did last year, because we actually ended early last year. And so we thought we would scooch some things around, but doors are at 3:30 p.m. And then we've got everything shutting down at 11, and we'll probably do a last call, right before our last band of the night as far as alcohol. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fun-filled day.
All right. Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Volunteers.
Yes, volunteers we need.
So Shauna, my wife, she had already, when we were at your house hanging out, she had put out that she would bartend if you need her or help with whatever. So she actually said that. I told her you were coming over today, and she said, remind her to let her know if she wants me to bartend or needs me for anything.
Yep.
I'll be more than happy to help. So
that
she
will
said
be
she
awesome.
would help.
We will take that. We're going to have we're going to be looking, we paid our bartenders last year. So I've got my associate, Lainey Ropp, who was kind of our head bartender last year, that is on that too, that we can filter people through. So if you are interested in bartending, or if you have a bartending experience, those ones are our paid jobs, because we figure if you're handling money, we want to make sure you get taken care of, and that you're, and she would be awesome because I know I can trust her. That's always a hard.
And she has the experience.
And
She's bartended for a long time. So
perfect, amazing. We'll connect on that. Then we also have, just a general need for people to help. Like we had someone helping with parking last year because, we always have people trying to park in that little parking lot, and our main parking lot's across the street.
Mm-hmm.
So that little parking lot right in front of Hagar's is just for band transporting. And then we also, I think, are going to need some more bouncers this year. So if you're big and tough and you can take the heat, we have a couple repeat people coming back, but I feel like we could have a couple more. And so we'll definitely have a need. If you are interested in volunteering, you can certainly hit me up. You can find me on the Instagram channel. So if you look up Heart on Your Sleeve Fest there, I think that's just / Heart on Your Sleeve Fest. Also, you can find us by looking up our Hoys Fest hashtag. So it's hashtag HOYS Fest, FEST. And you can get to the website using either one of those two. So if you go to heartonyoursleevefest.com, you're going to find us. And if you go to Hoys Fest, HOYS, you're going to find us too. Kind of right off the bat, we started with the acronym as a nickname to make it easy. So either one of those things will get you to me, and I can add you to our volunteer group if you're interested. And it's a good way to, check out the show for free, do a little bit of work, put back into the community.
Yeah.
Also, if you're interested in participating, we still have some opportunities, I think, for vendors to come on. We do have limited space, but we're looking at, just enriching the experience for everybody. So we'll probably have a couple extra vendors. I consider you guys a vendor. Obviously, you're a little bit more integrated into the event than that. But we're hoping to have some fun little, experiences and things happening for people too. I don't know if he's going to do it for 100%, but Addison was kind of talking about maybe setting up some stuff with his pedals and that would be kind of like a fun station for musicians to maybe noodle around and have some headphones and try
Cool.
some
Nice.
pedals and things was one of the things I had suggested to him. So we're looking to try to enrich the experience and, have some cool stuff to do when you're not checking out a band. So.
Sweet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about covers everything. I know we're going to do a ticket giveaway, so everybody look out for that because we'll probably we'll talk about that in a second. And when the show is over, we'll figure out how we'll do that content. And then did you have anything else for the Heart on Your Sleeve? I think we covered a lot today.
Awesome.
Good conversation besides that, too, as well. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out also you guys coming back on the show with the band. So,
Yes.
Sweet.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys for
it
having
as
me.
always. And much love to you guys. Keep it metal. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.